If you've been wanting to get active for a while, but find yourself procrastinating because you hate exercise, or you don't know where to start, or you just need some motivation to get back in the habit, I want to offer you my 6 week Walking for Weight Release beginner program because physical activity doesn't have to be hard or complicated in order to get results. And walking is one of the best ways to improve your health, prevent disease, and release weight. With the 6 week Walking for Weight Release program, you'll learn exactly where to start and how to build up gradually from there. You'll get everything you need to plan your routine, set goals, track your progress, and stay motivated. And before you know it, you'll be feeling light on your feet, confident, and bursting with energy. Grab this program for a limited time for only $11. That's a $99 value, but I want to make it as easy as possible for you to get in shape and release weight. Get all the details through the link in the show notes or at sarahhaaswellness.com. Welcome, beautiful soul. You're listening to the Boss Body Podcast, where we empower busy women in midlife, menopause, and beyond with the tools they need to release weight, physical, mental, and emotional, to create the vibrant, healthy life they deserve. If you're successful in so many areas of your life, but you struggle to give yourself the same love and care you offer everyone else, you've found your community. I'm your host, Sarah Haas, women's weight release and body love coach, and I'm here to help you age radiantly, feel good in your body, and live a joyful, energized life now and for decades to come. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is Sarah Haas, and you're listening to the Boss Body Podcast. I'm really, really excited to introduce you to my friend today because, well, we're going to talk about her book, and I'm going to get into that here in just a second. But first of all, let me just say she's an energy healer. She's the founder of Emotional Detox Coaching and the C.L.E.A.N.S.E method. She's an international best-selling author. She's a prolific author. She's written numerous books, courses, audio programs. And the book we're going to talk about today is called Emotional Detox. Sherianna Boyle, she blends psychology, energy healing, practical and spiritual approaches and weaves all that into all of her work. And by the way, she also has an amazing podcast, Just Ask Spirit. And I wanted to bring Sherianna on today because the title of her book, one of her books, Emotional Detox, really caught my eye. Being in the health and wellness industry, we hear the word detox a lot. We hear the word cleanse a lot. And that's the method that she uses in her book, which is what we're going to talk about. But we think of a detox a lot of times as a physical detox, a physical thing. You know, you're detoxing chemicals or toxins or whatever. And Sherianna, I'm so happy to have you here today to talk about what an emotional detox is. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So first of all, before we dive into all this, I have so many questions. But first of all, how did you come to write all these incredible books and realize the importance of people detoxing their emotions? And we're going to talk about what that means a lot in just a minute. But can you give me just a little bit of background? Like, what's your experience? What's your journey? What made you want to be able to do this for people?
Well, it's interesting because being that I just wrote the book Just Ask Spirit, which I know we'll talk about it later. I know we're focusing on emotional detox, but I feel like the whole thing has been very spirit led. One thing led to another thing. And for me, it all began when I gave birth to my first daughter, and then I went on a leave of absence from work. And then I ended up getting pregnant, and I said, "Oh, now I have two. Now I'm not I have another one on the way." So I decided, okay, I'm going to take a longer leave of absence. And then I was kind of freaking out. I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to go back to work? I really thought I was going to go back to what I did. I was a school psychologist with these children. And so I started writing about it. I started writing, and I thought, if I'm going through this, I bet you other people are going through this too. This moment where you're like, what do I do? How do I? And that's when I started writing. I decided, this could actually be a book. And so I self-published my first book. And then lo and behold, I'm at a preschool with one of my children. Fast forward, and someone there read that book and approached me and said, I see you're very mindful in nature and you know a lot about children and anxiety, because I was a school psychologist. I said, yeah. And they said, well, I work for a publisher. Will you write for us? And that's when it was like no accident, when you're just at the right place at the right time. Wasn't looking for it at all. I barely even told anyone I wrote a book. I probably just told my small circle of mom friends that I was working on something. I didn't have a website, anything like that.
So that was
And
just divine synchronicity. It
divine
was
sync.
really,
Yeah,
yeah, just the universe presenting you with this opportunity because it was what you were meant to do.
exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love when that happens. Don't you love when that happens?
Yeah. It's kind of like when someone says, I want to meet someone. And then when they're looking, they don't
Yeah.
meet someone. And then they don't
Yep.
look and they meet someone. Right.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of how it felt.
It's happened so many times in my life. So I want to talk about this theory, this concept of emotional detox, because, like I said, in health and wellness, we use that word a lot, detox, cleanse, and it's usually about flushing something out, sort of getting something out of us. Can you tell me a little bit about what does that mean, this emotional detox?
Sure. Well, that's exactly what I asked when I wrote that book. Was actually three books, Emotional Detox. It's a series. And it began with it's a mindset, an emotional detox. And the mindset is built on this, that you're not looking to get rid of your emotions like you would be in a physical detox, not looking to get rid of anything. You're actually looking to get to your emotions. And so we don't detox emotions per se. What we are detoxing, releasing, is our reactions. So the way we react to what we feel. And there's a number of ways that can happen. There's anything from people pleasing to minimizing to comparing yourself to others to, oh gosh, to complaining, to staying in the past. I mean, these are all ways that we react, which in essence, we're trying to control or manage what we feel. And when I wrote Emotional Detox, that's when, so I was channeling that book. It was all spirit led. I was asking spirit to give me the steps for it, because what I realized when I went through my own emotional trauma, and it's written in that book, and what I learned from going through that was people really need structure when with trauma. And so that was like a great awareness for me, meaning sometimes when people are going through a hard time, we might try to throw a bunch of tools at them. Try this, or I did that, or go see this person, or go do. And when somebody's in trauma like I was, they that's too much. It's too much. And telling them this, pulling them in many different directions is really the last thing that they need. And so for me, I needed some structure, and I knew I needed to process my emotions. So I was asking spirit, I was asking my guides about that. And that's when C.L.E.A.N.S channeled through. And those are the 7 steps. So emotional detox is the mindset, which means all your emotions matter. Processing them matters more. All of them matter, even the guilt, the shame, all of them matter. Processing. You're not looking to get rid of emotions, you're looking to get to them. That's the second basic principle that it's built on. And what are you getting rid of? Is you're getting rid of reactivity. You're removing that so you get closer with your emotions. And yeah, so that's like the crux of it. And then cleanse is the acronym for 7 steps for processing your emotions. Because of course, the next natural question is, well, how do I do it? And that's when cleanse was channeled. It took about 8 months for that to channel through. And it really pulls in all the previous books that I had written. So I kind of felt like I wrote all those books to create that book.
Yeah. And what you said really struck me in that we need to process our emotions. And that's one thing that we tend to shy away from in our society. I know a lot of women come to me because they struggle with emotional eating. And emotional eating is almost always a result of trying to stuff down or fill up because an emotion's coming up that's uncomfortable, or a situation or whatever that may be, and you don't want to think about it, you don't want to process it, you don't want to go there, so you eat to numb it out. Or it can be, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm dissatisfied, and so you eat to sort of fill that hole. But either way, it's emotionally driven. And we're not taught to process. We're taught to put on a happy face. We're taught to, be brave for your kids, be brave for blah, 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 or don't be too emotional. It makes you look weak. There's so many things that we've been fed over the years that we should not do. We should not be seen crying. We should not look, like something bothers us. We should put on this mask and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I just think it is so important. Like what you said is go inward and go into the emotion. At least that's what I took from what you were saying. And then in doing that, I know you're going to talk us through this acronym for cleanse, but in doing that, you can change how you're reacting, your reaction to those emotions. Because I know emotions that I have sometimes, if they're connected to any kind of trauma or scary event or painful event or whatever, will kick up anxiety or fear or sadness or regret or self criticism. And I think most people can relate to what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look at it like similar to food, that when you really digest your food, you get something from that. You get nutrients from your food. You get nutrition, you get energy to the cells, and the cells need energy to function, to do their thing, for the neurotransmitters in the brain to work properly. And so the same thing with emotions, that when we process them, even though you might think it's like not an emotion you're crazy about, you don't like, you do get something from that. And I'm going to say it's like food, you get energy. The processing state is an experience. So you allow yourself to experience the emotions. And when we experience emotions, when we allow any experience at all, we know that is one of the ways that we change the brain. According to neuroplasticity, we have the ability to change our own brains. And how do we do that? And we know that the neurons, the way they communicate, the way they fire off neurotransmitters, they again, they require energy, but they change with experience. So it means you're not doing the same thing. So a lot of the things you just mentioned, yeah, everybody was kind of told very similar things, to shove them down, that to ignore them. And honestly, when I wrote Emotional Detox, that's when I came up with the term, well, Spirit gave me the term cope addict. We're Spirit said, don't be a cope addict. meaning COPE, cope.
Like
And coping,
coping with the situations.
coping. I mean, this is some of the psychology field, which is now changing now, but we were basically advocating, cope with this and cope with that. But there's not a lot of processing with that. So coping is wonderful. It's a great tool to have to be able to cope with a stressful situation. But then, as I always say, coping has this expiration date. So as soon as you're out of the situation that you're in, so for example, you're at a dinner party and you're sitting with someone and maybe they say something you don't like and you cope with that, you keep your cool, you stay calm, you get through the dinner. But once you leave, you don't continue to cope. And that a lot of times people do. And how do they do? They might gossip, they might complain, they might get upset, they might ruminate. But that's all a sign that you haven't processed. So you need to create some space to say, how did that feel when that person said that? Maybe somebody who struggles with their weight or something, like your clientele. They're in a situation, maybe they feel judged, or, sometimes those situations, whether they're in public or not, sometimes someone just makes a comment and you are truly coping in that moment. But then you have to go and acknowledge it. And that's where the structure of cleanse can help someone kind of step into that a little, acknowledge what that felt like, go through the steps of cleanse and process it. And what that means is you're changing one experience where maybe you felt shocked or shame or guilt or unworthy, and you're transforming that experience through experience into a new state of being. So you're transforming the energy of unworthiness into worthiness or something else.
And so that's the whole goal of this, tapping into the emotion so that we can process it, so that it can be released, which changes our state of being, as you say. When I talk about emotional eating and why it's so important to process the emotions and cleanse them, is so that you will not continue emotional eating, because that's the coping mechanism to these feelings that are driving that. So why are you saying that we need to do this with all kinds of different circumstances and
Oh.
emotions? What's
Well,
the outcome? What's the
yeah.
benefit? What's the reason? Because a lot of people are like, yeah, but I don't like going down that rabbit hole. It's painful. It zaps my energy. It makes me feel sad or angry or whatever. And I don't like feeling that. So what's the big deal if I drink a bunch of wine or go out and do some shopping to give myself a boost instead of processing
Mm,
these emotions?
yeah. Well, it's interesting because when you were talking about your emotional eating just a little while ago and your clients who might emotionally eat to fill a void or something like that, I actually wrote down on my piece of paper here, gives the illusion that they're filling themselves up. But that's an illusion. Emotional eating is a way you emotionally drain yourself. So you're actually losing energy. And so the point of it all is to remember that you can't get rid of energy, right? Energy cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed. And when you move energy, so when anything goes through a process and you convert it into a higher consciousness state, so you become aware, drinking doesn't increase awareness, it decreases awareness.
Exactly. It's an
And every time
avoidance
it's
behavior.
exactly. And then when you decrease consciousness and awareness, you're going to drop in energy and you maintain that state that you're in. So the point is it helps you feel lighter. That's usually what people say the most once they go through a cleanse. I say, how do you feel? The 7 steps. And they often will say, I feel more relaxed and I feel a little lighter, meaning like something's been taken off of them. And we don't realize, Sarah, how much we carry. And we've assigned ourselves a lot of extra roles from childhood. We may be carrying something where we've been doing it since we were a child, maybe some caretaking or some parenting or taking on someone else's burdens, and carrying on these patterns. But as soon as you become aware and you convert the energy, for me, when I went through my emotional detox, what was my inspiration was my children. I just wanted to end the pattern. I knew I could see threads of it. I was felt in some ways I was living my mother's life. How many of us have felt that?
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
boy, I'm living my mother's life. It's here, right? And I really was, that was my intention, was I knew it was going to have to be from feeling. And that's something my mother didn't take the time to do because they didn't have the tools. So I gave myself a year. That's how I started. I said, I'm going to take a year and I'm going to process. And this was my mindset back then. This is a lot of people's mindset. And I'm going to process everything for a year. And then when the year is up, I'm going to decide from there. Right. And what ended up happening was I had developed cleanse as I got a daily practice. And then a year comes up and I'm thinking, why would I ever stop this in a year? But that was my old thinking. Oh, I'll just deal with this, get it all packaged up, get yourself better, and then you can move on.
Yeah, we like to think of an end date of
Exactly.
anything, whether it's healthy eating, whether it's healthy emotions, processing. We kind of think, oh, okay, I'll just do an intensive, I'll do a 5 day, I'll do a 30 day, I'll do a 1 year. And what you said really resonated with me about women taking on these roles. And this is not about blame or like, oh, it's your fault you took on these roles. It happens subconsciously and it's projected on us from day one that we're meant to take on all these roles. We're meant to be the caretakers. We're meant to be the nurturers. We're meant to help people with their emotional burdens and help people through it. And I think what you're saying is this adds up over time. And if we're not processing it, if we're not releasing it, it's going to show up in our lives in people pleasing, in anxiety, in being self-critical. And I thought this was huge. You said this is taking away your energy because I know I can relate, and I know a lot of the women listening can relate to feeling exhausted all the time and not understanding why and thinking, "Ah, I've been going to bed on time or I've been, checking off all the things. Why am I so exhausted?" And I think that is a really important point that you make. It takes more energy to keep pushing this stuff down and to be carrying it with us 24/7 than it actually does to tap into it, understand it, process it, and release it, even though that seems harder and scarier.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, I think many women have assigned themselves these roles, and in essence, we've made ourselves responsible, and men, for so many things. And when we take responsibility for everything, in some ways, what I've learned just helping people release reactivity and transform it is it's another way of saying it's my fault. If we really feel I'm responsible for your, Sarah, you feel sad, somehow I'm responsible for that sadness. I must have contributed to that sadness, right? And so I'm just joking, but it's just a little example of what we do. Oh, and then here's what happens. I need to fix it. If I'm responsible, then somehow I need to make it better. Now, what if I don't have enough support? What if I don't have the tools? What if I am emotionally, energetically drained? I'm going to feel like a failure. It's not going to feel good. And so, no wonder we go to mechanisms where we numb, like food, like alcohol. And so it becomes this. So, again, it began with sort of this taking on everything, this responsibility. Like, I'm responsible for everything. I'm responsible for my mother being happy, my father being happy, my kids being happy, and doing well in school and doing better than the next generation. It's just a lot of pressure. And I'm
Yeah.
responsible for looking a certain way, whatever it is. I think it's just too much. And when you've learned to process your emotions and you take the time, it is about getting your worth back.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me this. If there's people listening and then I want you to take us through the process, the cleanse process,
Sure.
so we can understand what those steps look like. But how do you know if you're one of these people? What are the things that are showing up in your life? What are the symptoms? Like, what if you're thinking, "Oh, well, I think I've processed things pretty well. I've let that go. I've moved on from that. That doesn't bother me anymore. So why would I need to do an emotional detox?"
Well, in the book Emotional Detox, I talk about levels of reactivity. And there's different forms of it. So high levels of reactivity, that's when you're so reactive. You're so in it, reacting to everything. You're taking things personally. That's a sign you're not processing your emotions. You're getting easily bent. You're getting easily offended. You're triggered. You're having a hard time with triggers, whether it's food or a relationship in your life. Triggers are a big way that we know. And then we look at the intensity of the triggers. If you just can't let something go, if you're ruminating, revisiting it, losing sleep over it, that's high levels of reactivity. I know it's high levels because I'm so in it, I'm not, I don't even know what my tools are. It's like I forgot. It's like I have amnesia. You have them. Everybody has them. They're inside of you. But for some reason, we don't, the mind, you just don't even think of it.
Yeah.
And then medium levels of reactivity, you could be in reactivity, but you're aware of your tools and they're there. Maybe you're even contemplating them. And then low levels of reactivity is I'm aware I'm in reactivity right now. I am aware of my body. I'm aware that my heart rate has gone up. I'm aware that I'm getting triggered. I'm turning to my tools and I am using them. And so the idea is you want to bring your levels down. So there's no perfect here. We're not looking to be a perfect human being that never gets upset again. We
Yeah, it's
just
not
want
about
to,
being upset because
yeah,
that can be a good thing. That can be a release. That can be mean that you are in touch with your emotions
yeah,
and your
yeah.
but it's that internal feeling and I can relate to it. I know that when I haven't processed something, it shows up as anxiety. I'm
Oh,
constantly
yes.
feeling anxious and not really understanding why. And I can do all the yoga, all the breathing, all the
Yes.
meditation, and there's a reason that's showing up for me. Or it's like this fear-based thinking, this like what if, or the shoe's going to drop any day and I don't know why I'm feeling that way. It's just like this worry brain. That's that's what lets me know I've got some internal work to be done.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm excited for you to kind of take us through this cleanse process
Sure.
that you use in all of your books. This is
All
your
of them. Yeah.
your
It's kind of my
method.
signature. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the all three emotional detox books. Then it evolved. Then I wrote a book called Energy in Action, which is on manifesting and the spiritual laws of the universe, because spirit guided me. My guides were telling me, you need to start sharing this with people, the truth about how to work with these laws. And so that has a cleanse in it, but a cleanse according to working with the spiritual laws. And then Just as Spirit has cleanse in it, the same structure, but this one is about connecting to your spirit guides and getting clarity and direction, all of that. So just people know that's my signature system, but it's evolved over time. The emotional detox version starts with C, which is the clear reactivity. So that we actually start there. And that means we have to tone down the level of reactivities, get you back in your body. There's many, many ways. And emotional detox now, I wrote 135 cleanses. Everybody kept asking me, how do I do this without you? And so I wrote 135 cleanses. I wrote that book for that person, but I
Oh,
would start with
wow.
the core book, Emotional Detox, before you go to that one. But that is, so it's clear reactivity. The next step is L, which is look inward. That's where you acknowledge the emotions. And I teach you how to start to go toward them in a way where you're not re traumatizing yourself. And I think that's why people get so afraid of processing is they don't want to go back.
Yeah,
They don't want to relive something. And you know what?
absolutely.
I don't either. I'm with you
Mm.
100%. And that's why I created Cleanse. So Al teaches you a way to acknowledge without re-traumatizing yourself or anybody else for that matter. E is called emit, and emit is about now let's start to change the energy of this. And that's a mantra in there. So I talk about mantras. I wrote a book about mantras. So I felt like I wrote the mantra book because to produce the cleanse, I knew there would be a mantra in there. And then there's a very specific mantra that you'll use. Mantra means repeating a word several times. It's an energy and it's sacred, and you're converting what the energy at this point after you've acknowledged the emotion. And then the A is called activate. So now you have energy. Remember, when you get triggered, you lose energy. Food is a trigger, it can be a trigger. So you losing energy, but now you're at E, you're increasing energy with emit mantra. And now you're at A. So now you have the energy to create something new, and that's activate. And so we're kind of like a bridge. We're on the other side now, and we're creating a new energy. We're creating a new current. We're creating a new state of mind. And then N is nourish, and that's very important. I think this is where women maybe don't sit long enough, and that's why I have 7 steps. And that once you're in that new consciousness, that new energy, you got to receive it. You got to take a second to smell the roses and take it in. Because sometimes we get there, we're like, okay, I feel better. Okay, now what do I do? No, you receive it, honey.
So you
You take it
bask
in.
in it for a minute. You
You
bask in
take a
love,
moment,
that glow,
yes, to
that
bask.
love that's coming towards you, the healing.
Yeah, you want to take it in. Yeah, that's the deserving. That's what it looks like to go from unworthy to worthy. You take something in. And
Mm.
then S is surrender. And at this point, surrender is all about what you're going to allow. So that is your free will. It's always up to your free will. Somebody can give you a million tools, but it's really up to you on whether you allow this transformation in your life. So the surrender is about I allow. And then the ease, which is the last, the E, that is the I am. And what that means is that we step into integration and we realize that this isn't parts of us, this is us. There's a wholeness that you land in.
That's amazing. And you described it sort of like a bridge. And in my mind, it was almost like a wave, or maybe the opposite of a wave, because it was kind of,
A waterfall. I always see it as a
yeah,
waterfall.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of you go
Yeah.
down and you look inward, And then you change that energy. So you start coming up, you start having energy instead of being tired. And then you nourish, which just continues to fill you up. And then you just surrender it. And then the ease, I love that word ease. That's what we all want, right? We want
Yeah.
ease of life. We want to stop struggling. And that's sort of the message that I'm getting from all of this is we're struggling. We're struggling in a lot of areas and we're fighting against what actually can help us stop struggling. And so I think you've really opened up a beautiful container that people can step into and go through this process. And you say this is something you can do daily, you can do with a lot of different things. And you also have a 5-minute daily cleanse meditation on your website, which I'm going to put a link to so that people can kind of experience a little bit of what that would look like.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's definitely daily. And after, when I said the year thing, remember, I was still in the writing process. But then once I did the research, I realized it can't be, there can't be an end
Yeah.
because we will revert back. It's like anything, it's like
Hmm.
eating a certain lifestyle in a certain way and then going back to your old habits. The old stuff, right? The old ways will return. So it really does need to be a daily practice.
Yeah, it's a journey. Everything's a journey. You're never just done. You're never just healed. You're never just okay, yay, check it off. That's
Exactly.
why we're here. We're here to learn. We're here to grow, and you have to consistently keep nurturing that. And I think that all of your books, and especially this emotional detox series, is just amazing. And I want to thank you for listening to your intuition, to your higher power who gave you that nudge so that you could put this out there into the world. And I want to thank you for being here today to share a taste of it with us.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for being here and for listening in. As always, I'm honored that you're taking the time to be with me, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much for being here. I'm honored that you've chosen to spend your time with me and allowed me to be part of your journey. In case you need to hear this, you are enough. You're smart enough. You're successful enough. You're beautiful enough. You're important enough. You are enough right now, just as you are. You were enough yesterday. You'll be enough tomorrow. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe and share it with the amazing women in your life who could use a little extra love and support. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.